Welcome to a special January edition of Tiger Talk, episode 53. In all the years, we have never done an episode in January. But when you get your dream guest, you got to come out, or it doesn't matter. You don't get to rest, okay? You got to get back out there and do it. Before we get there, we have to say hello to my co-host. How are you, Becca?
Doing great, doing great. I mean, does football ever sleep though?
Well, I guess not around here, but hosts sleep.
Yeah.
And speaking of a coach who never sleeps, the state runner-up in Ohio of last year, welcome to the show, our hero, Coach Evan Dreyer. How are you, sir?
Oh, great. It's been a whirlwind since the state finals, and to talk football with you guys is going to be amazing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we are just beyond excited to have you. First, I got to know, how did you find out about us? I'm going to tell you from my side, I'm watching the OSU game. And, I'm wondering how the Bucks are doing and how the fans are. And I thought, I'm going to go to Twitter and see if people are losing their mind. This was about when it was 14-14. And I see someone followed me, and I'm like, no, there's no way. This cannot be. Not the coach of Cincinnati Anderson, our sister team. There's no way. So how did you find out about us? We're so curious.
So, after the state Final Four, we started watching and trying to find out what happened to our Tigers up north. And I found you in the show, and we started looking over because nobody could show us what actually the weather was like. So during that game, and we were trying to look up highlights, and we came across you, and we're like, no way. And then, as one of my assistants does, he found you, and then I went down to our spirit shop, was like, do you guys know this guy? And they're like, absolutely. There's no, he came in during lunch, and like, I found the people, and it.
Good afternoon. How may I help you?
I'd like to buy a Cincinnati Anderson t-shirt.
All right, I'll give you this so you can put that on.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good.
What's your most popular t-shirt? Do you have one about not punting? Do you have like a punt that we don't punt? Anderson, you don't punt, right?
And it was one of the most amazing conversations because our secretary was like, yeah, he thought Newt was the coach. He swore that our athletic director was coach. I was like, yeah. So we watched the episode, and you kind of gave us some insight of what happened, the state Final Four of that night, and the weather and the insight. And we watched ever since.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that so much. And what I really love is that you understand the spirit. I am so interested in this.
And
I mean,
so are our kids. Like when we because we followed you all season. And so like we didn't punt or no punt at the end of every Tiger Talk. Like, did they punt? Did they not punt? And like our kids got so mad at us when we got to our week 10, because that's our rival week. And then we don't talk about other teams when we go into the playoffs and as much. And so they were like, you're not doing punt or no punt. They were like, so
Is there no punt or no punt this week?
so why don't you just admit you haven't been watching the show? So we don't fool around during playoffs.
not doing it. They were so mad. It was so funny.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to the Massillon McKinley week, I went home. That's the biggest game for Massillon. Nothing's bigger than Massillon McKinley. I couldn't step 5 feet without someone stopping to me to talk about Cincinnati Anderson. Like the entire town of Massillon is totally invested in you not punting. So I want to start there. Where did you come up with this idea? When did you implement it? We really want to know. We are so interested.
So I think every time you get a job and you go through life, there's a bunch of different ways to go about and be successful. And so I started researching about 8 years ago when I took over Anderson, what's going to give us an advantage. And there was a guy, Kevin Kelly out of Arkansas, Pulaski Academy, that no punt, and gave me analytics behind it. And ever since we started with analytics, and then we went through it, and we went 7-4 our first year here, and we still punted. We did the tight punts just like everybody does throughout high school football. And then we started evolving from there of like, okay, when it's fourth down, okay, do we believe the game's going to be closer than 14 points? Then we either got to punt or no punt. Then we got to decide from there. Okay, once we cross the 50, we're not going to punt. So each year it's evolved, and it matters of, okay, do we have a returning quarterback? Where's our offense at? How much are we going to practice punting? Do we have a punter? Do we have a long snapper? Have we developed those? So throughout the years, and then with this year, and I would tell you, as the head coach of Anderson High School, after that loss of Massillon, we had so many returning starters coming back that we were ready to go for this year. And with 4 punts and then one in the state championship game, that's kind of where it started, ended, and it's going to evolve from there of what we're going to look like next year in 2025.
I love it so much. I'm going to tell you, I've been going to the Massillon game since I was a little kid. And when I was a little kid, I was with my dad, and I said, you know, Dad, if I was the coach, I would never punt. You're giving up 25% of your downs. And my dad said, you're stupid. Shut up and watch the game. And I didn't want to say anything while we were covering punt or no punt, but that was part of it. I'm like, here's a coach who thought of it. You do give up 25% of your offense's chances when you punt.
So the one other thing is, if you go through analytics, how many high school punters average over 30 yards, like per punt? And majority of them do not. Like, it has to be a perfect snap, perfect kick. Like, it has to be unbelievable. Like, Urban Meyer, his plan to win. Have you had Urban Meyer talk at in Massillon or Jim Tressel and those guys in May?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So they always have this plan to win and the percentage where people get the ball at and the field of battle. But honestly, if we go for it inside our 20 or our 10-yard line and we don't have a great punt, it's the scoring percentage for the other team is still the same. Like, and I truly believe, like, you think of last year's Final Four, we're in Columbus Crew Stadium, we're down 21-7. At some point also, Scott, you got to decide, are you going to try to win the game, or are you just going to lose the game and be okay with it? Like, and I think that's the part where people think it's crazy. Like, we at that culmination, we were going to lose, but we had to give our kids a chance and give every opportunity. And I'm okay with, okay, we gave it all, we lost. The punt or no punt wasn't going to matter that night. And I'm okay with getting on the bus and say they were a better team. And that's kind of the way it's went through our kids and our community's mindset.
I just want you to know it almost did not work out for us at the state game because we did a fake punt within the last 2 minutes and he got caught by the shoelaces. And literally everyone down the sideline, I was like, Nate Moore is never going to be able to step off the bus again if he took out a page from Cincinnati Anderson. They're going to burn our house down. And it's like, so when we did the book Massillon Against the World, one of the coaches that the defensive coach and the defensive coordinator was like, everybody was like happy with that call except for us. So yeah, I do love it. I just don't know if you could do that in Stark County, Scott. Like, could you imagine having a coach that like I mean, obviously we're not like football savvy, and I did ask Nate about you not punting, and he said, well, analytically and statistical wise, it does make sense. But what would happen, Scott, if in Stark County?
Yeah, it's one of my questions I have for you is, how has the media or the other coaches across the field reacted to it? Because if Nate Moore didn't punt when he was up 40-0, the Canton Repository would front page say that Nate Moore was an asshole. And everyone would be angry. And the parents from those schools would be angry. I mean, one time we faked a punt
Green, yeah.
against Green. And if you heard the language that was broadcast across spectrum from that other team, and everyone said Masslin's the biggest jerks in the world, and we were only up by maybe 14 at that point, and you're talking about a regional championship. So do you get backlash for, because I noticed, because I've been following you guys, I noticed you don't even punt when your second string gets in and everything. So have you had backlash from the media or other coaches?
I think from the media standpoint, it's a running joke around here in Cincinnati behind my back of what they say and how we go about it. And I've thought about it, like in Stark County, if you're at Massillon, of what people would think. And, you know, being a coach at your school, you have to have big shoulders. And sometimes you just got to keep focusing on your team and program. And I truly believe the issue I have is now when you're up, you have a running clock. The clock just keeps going. So the punt or no punts, if you throw incomplete pass now, it almost takes off the minutes. If you're down by more than 30, you throw incomplete, you don't punt, so be it. But the green game, as you talk about, the part that I love talking about is that when you do it, 95% of the time, people cannot scream or yell. And the articles that are written, I laugh about because he didn't punt again. And it's a well-known fact. Our parents laugh about it because it's like the first question when you have the 8th grade meeting coming up, Becca, of the mom or dad of like, why do you do it? Why do you not punt? What? It's every year. It's going to happen at the end of January. An 8th grade eighth grade dad's going to challenge me and say, Coach, why don't you punt? And then we have to go through it. And I usually draw it on a whiteboard of the analytics and where the ball's punted to. So, Scott, with that being said, I think it's a little bit of an element that I'm just going to hold on to for a little while. And everybody in our conference laughs about like a coach's meeting when they say punter of the year, and guys whisper Dreyer.
But I watched the state championship game because I was rooting for you guys 100%. And you guys didn't lose that game because you didn't punt. I mean, it made no difference. That kid catches the football in the end corner. I mean, who knows what happens? You guys were that close. So it literally did not affect your season as I saw it. How do you see it now that a month has gone by in that state championship game?
So I think playing up in that stadium, first of all, we came up the day early. And for you guys to have a rivalry game in that stadium every other year is amazing. Like for anybody who wants to change the state championship because the venue is totally wrong. Canton does it right. Everything about it is unbelievable. The weather, the snow, as I found out, it was rough, but we both had to play. Like that's not an excuse. And I even punted for you on the first drive because I wanted to make sure
I know we were
happy.
so sad.
I go back through it, and it's one of those things where it was an experience that I will remember. But now every year, and you guys are there of like wanting to get back, and every fan wants to get back, and it's like heartbroken city if you don't make it back. And looking at those seniors after that loss and telling them they gave all for high school and how meaningful it was. And a month has went by and it's still really special. But now, like Becca knows, Nate's not going to sleep until you get there again and see those kids' eyes and how much excitement is on that game day and bringing a town together. And it's really, really special.
Yeah, we went 3 years. We lost like Hoban, LaSalle, Hoban, I think. So that was like one of our questions too, because like I looked at your schedule for the last 2 or 3 years. Like you guys don't play the private schools, or I guess LaSalle would be maybe the only. I don't think we played. Nate was at LaSalle. I don't think we played you guys when we were there. I mean, what is that like down there? You know, where it's like a kind of a big deal here, like people hate it up here.
So Becca, it's changed so much because now everybody's went to a 9-game schedule. So in the league, so we can't play the out of conference LaSalle week 1 because they're playing Coleraine and they have that big rivalry game on the west side.
Mhm.
So we've had to go and get the teams right across the river in Kentucky. Like we're going to play the state runner-up in their Division One, which is cool. But I think the neat thing is I think it's going to come back sooner or later of like we're going to have a play, like we're going to have to go play somebody outside. Like one of my goals, Becca, is to play every state around us. Like I want to play a team from Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana. I think that's really cool in the end of it to see it all. So I'm going to take a chance here soon. And I definitely, like, we start scrimmaging people. Like, I reached out to Hoban to scrimmage, and Tim was busy. And Toledo Central Catholic, I want to start scrimmage some bigger time names across, and hopefully we can get that going and kind of
Don't
make
want
it
to
a big jamboree before.
you don't want to come to
Oh,
Massillon and scratch us?
I would love to do that. I'm going to be honest with you. We went to Ironton. Have you ever been to Ironton? It's
Yes,
like
we
one of the
actually played them. Yeah, we played them. Yep.
it's one of the neatest small towns, Becca. Like I think it's one of the coolest trips. Scott, have you ever been there?
No, I've never been to Ironton.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of the coolest, neat stadiums. A small town. We scrimmaged those guys, and I love it personally. It reminds me of Hoosiers. The stadium, like the locker room, hasn't been touched in over 40, 50 years, and the town comes out. And like one cool fact that you guys have to have at Massillon, their hardware store still collects helmets of every opponent that they play. So it's
Oh,
like
that
one of
is
those
pretty
cool little facts.
cool. I mean, I would like
So
to see you schedule Maslin. If you came up here and played a game, you'd be a freaking hero. I mean, this town, they're following Cincinnati Anderson. I mean, you're our
how about
sisters team down there. We'll come, we'll do a home and home.
home and home?
I Yeah, we'll
You're
do a
doing
home and
Nate's
home.
job. You're like doing Nate's job. You're gonna tell Nate you did his schedule.
Yeah, I have authority as host of Tiger Talk to schedule one game a year,
Yeah.
and
the
I
battle
want to pick Anderson.
the battle of orange and black, Scott. You can just already put it out there. The battle of orange and black. Okay. The winner has to wear orange jacket for a year. The loser has to wear whatever you choose. So
Right. I mean, I'm with it. I mean, I got my Anderson shirt, which I love, by the way. I mean, it is so soft. It's a perfect shirt. I was so nervous going in through the school because I didn't want it to be misinterpreted, and I didn't want to give locker room because I thought for sure we were going to play each other. Like I really thought the
Yeah.
state semifinals was going to be Anderson versus Maslin, and I thought, oh, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to have a shirt, and I didn't want to make Nate mad because I didn't tell him I was going to do that. But it was really hard for me to like get in and get out and only cause a little bit of trouble.
Scott, everybody in Cincinnati thought it was going to be us right then and there. And honestly, nobody wants to talk about it from our standpoint. The weather in your game and our game and all across the state changed a lot of things that night. And it was one of those things where how many times out of 10 does that happen in that weather, from the wind and the rain? And I still remember there's a clip on Twitter of seeing your guys' nose tackle walk in with the rain and wind hitting him pregame. And I remember seeing that. And I'm like, holy cow, what was it really like in the stands that night?
It was pretty miserable. It was really I was on the sidelines. But that was Big Mike. And I want to tell you, Big Mike, so he graduated early. He went to Youngstown State. He's really one of my favorite kids. You know, he's been with us since 7th and 8th grade. And I said, so, you know, what was what was your hardest week, you know, being at Massillon? And he was like, ugh, I hated the week we prepared for Cincinnati Anderson. It was so fast. I'm too big. I'm too big. It's fast. Like, because you guys are so hurry up. So, yeah, you made quite an impression on our big guys. They didn't like preparing for you at all.
Becca, as long as I never have to see Big Mike in a Massillon uniform again, I'll be able to sleep a little bit more because he was one of the best players, pound for pound, that I've ever watched. And I think people can talk about height, but the heart and hustle and effort and strength that kid had was amazing. Like for him not to be up for state defensive player of the year and get it is a shame. And taking into account of who he had to play against and what he was like was, to me, he was a special, special player.
And I will definitely tell his mom that, and he'll appreciate it. And then you guys had Chase Bond too, so you had him and Chase Bond and Cody Fair. I mean, that was a different team last year than the team he would have faced this year. I mean, that team was pretty special. Obviously they walked away with it.
Becca, was that the best defense you've ever watched on Nate's team?
Yeah, I would definitely say, and Scott could, I mean, I would definitely, most disciplined, I would say. And those kids, well, Cody Fair went into the military. Like he's playing for the Navy Academy. I mean, like those kids were super disciplined, really from the time they were in 7th and 8th grade. So I just think they were like, those are your true leaders. Like those are the kids we're going to see come back. It was kind of like when Nate was at LaSalle, Jeremy Larkin was just in his office, the other week, and Jeremy Larkin was his Nate's running back when we won the state championship in 2014 at LaSalle. And like you just knew that year, even though everybody thought Nordonia was going to beat us, that they just had it. Like they had the leadership. It was there. And although you guys looked big, I mean, you were big and stuff, I don't know, there was just something different about those kids.
That team walked out with the it factor, and I will tell anybody, when you get to that state Final Four, state finals, the it factor, you can watch it on tape, but until you get on walk on the field, Becca, and I was like, wow, this team is special from the time. And like Nate didn't have to say a word of the energy. Those guys were so laser focused on getting to that point. And we took a lot of things from that game and stole from you guys in the fact of like, where do we got to get to and where do we want to go? Because we're chasing something bigger than us. And you showed us that night of what we have to do to get there.
And I love that. And I think like for me and Nate and, like we do Tiger Talk because we wanted, Scott and I do Tiger Talk because we wanted like people to see the other side of like what goes on off the field. And there's more than just, the kids and on the field, like how you recognize Big Mike, because Maslin, our kids get overlooked. Like Scott and I talk about it all the time. Like I get so mad, not as mad anymore because we've been years, but like you just have come to accept it. Like it's because they wear Maslin or Tigers across their chest. And I think that's the big thing that these kids, in 2023 that they had to, like, that's okay. We don't need to win awards. We'll win a state championship instead, So I appreciate that. And I think I'm glad you guys took stuff away because that's what Nate and I as people and as coaches, like that's what we want too. Obviously I don't coach football, but
oh yes you do, flag football.
That's right.
Yes.
Flag football. Yeah, that's true. I do coach flag football, but like I work with the kids too. So that's like our big thing is for people to see that there's so much more, to our kiddos than winning on the field too.
Well, I think you guys do so much off the field in the off season of the representation of Maslin that people kind of overlook when you're in that head coach family. My wife and I talk about of how many games you go to this off season, from basketball to wrestling. Then you have youth programs. It never stops because you're trying to build relationships, and people don't always look at it and say like, okay, well, are they people or are they building something? And it's like, okay, when can I actually sit down and have dinner without staring at my phone?
Yeah. And then with me coaching, so I coach track, I coach the rollers, and then obviously we're starting girls flag football this year, which we're really excited about. And then as you know, recruiting is going on. I mean, it's never ending for a coach's family. And that's why I was kind of glad that we got to write Maslin Against the World, and we got to show them like an inside clip of what it takes to like even get to a state championship. Like people think, I don't know if down there they think it's easy. Like, I mean, they think I think people think it should be easy, but it's a lot of work with the off season. But how do people what do people think of Maslin down in Cincinnati? Because I know when we were at LaSalle, it was just the road to Maslin and winning the state, playing up here now that it's played in Canton. But what do people think of Maslin?
I think everybody, until you play you, Becca, and like see it as a whole, like it's a community that nobody can replicate. Like I remember our kids talking about how big your band was like before the game, and we're like, oh my God, is it 300? Is it 400? Like, okay. And I think that's the part where after seeing it, okay, I remember saying like to our band guy, like, okay, when we have to get back here, we have to bring our full band. We can't just bring our pep band. All right. And kind of, I remember walking out of the game and seeing your Croswells, and like everything was first class the way you guys do it for football, which brings the community together. And everything about it is towards, okay, winning. But at the same time, you guys have kids getting recruited all across the nation. And to me, everybody's chasing that. We have the parochial schools down here, the Big Four, and then you have the public schools, and Wood Woods being right there at the top of Division II, that we're Division I this year.
Wait a minute, you're going to be Division I this year?
No, Wood Woods was.
Oh, I got scared because I like to think that maybe someday we'll meet up again. You scared me for a second.
No. I think everybody in Cincinnati knows your difference, and that we're chasing you guys to make it to the level of where you're at. But the Big Four, as you know, LaSalle was rolling, and then it was Moeller, and then everything kind of goes in rotation. And I'm interested to see what happens in the GCL as they go forward.
Yeah, St. X.
One, I want to roll back, and it's very nice of you to say that the rain is the reason we lost to Big Walnut. But as a Massillon Tiger fan, I have to say that is not why we lost. I won't say any more, but I just can't keep my integrity as to say we lost because of the weather. But I have a question about
22 penalties.
It was 19.
Do you know that it took every 10 minutes of our practice after seeing that of making sure we didn't jump off sides? Because
well, did Big Walnut call your tempo? Did they try to cheat?
Yes, but like Nate's an O-line coach at heart, and I was like, there's no way they didn't practice for it. Like, I'm telling you, the preparation, and I'm like, there's something going on. So like that whole week, we made our scout team literally do anything possible to get us to move, and it worked. But it was one of those things where I told the referees before the game. I'll be honest with you, after seeing that, it's like one of those things where the first time I didn't want to sound like a whiner before the game, but I definitely said, this is going to happen, and this cannot be called over and over again. So
I'm glad we took the fall for you. You did get to play in a pretty epic game though with the snowball. It was pretty awesome to watch.
I mean, I have to say, because I'm the one that came up with punt or no punt and did it all year on the show, I was starting to get nervous when the playoffs were coming, because I was like, if Cincinnati Anderson beats us, the town of Massillon is going to hate me forever. Like, I would have been more nervous at that Cincinnati Anderson Massillon game than I was at the state championship. I just thought, I mean, everyone's going to be like, this is Scott's fault. He's still talking about them punting all year, and they didn't punt and they beat us. So while I'm really sad that we lost to Big Walnut, I don't know. It might have worked out okay for me. I'm just saying. For me, it was fine. But
and you got to talk about the shirt. Like, we have to we want a shirt that says punter.
Yeah, we'd say, when I went into the store, I asked for a punt or no punt shirt, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Come on, what are you doing?
The student you talked to was a Michigan fan, Scott. You can't talk to Michigan fans.
Come on. Dude, you got to get a punt or no punt shirt. These are going to sell like hotcakes. We'll sell them up on, everyone in Massillon's going to want a punt or no punt shirt.
Yeah.
So this is like a money-making. You said you liked the cross somethings that Massillon had. You're going to be able to buy one with the money you make on a punt or no punt.
Instead of Cincinnati Anderson against the world, it should be punt or no punt.
Yeah, it's on the back, punt or no punt. Because I'm going to put it on this shirt no matter what. I'm going to get it on.
When Massillon wins a game on Friday night, you're just going to have to wear your Massillon jacket. And when you see our store, you're just going to have to rip it off like Hulk Hogan and so you can walk around.
Of course.
Yes.
But, I mean, this is just a no-brainer for me, I think. You get it. In watching the state championship game in the fourth quarter, it was very tense, it was close, and you're on the sideline laughing and having a good time. It made me like you so much in that moment. I thought, I love this coach. He gets it. Tell me about your attitude in that fourth quarter. You couldn't have seemed more relaxed.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was really, really cold. I was trying to warm up my hands. And Scott, I told myself I was going to enjoy the moments the entire day. Like, I think it was one of those things where as coaches, you get so tense. And as a play caller, as the head coach, I had to give a feeling to our players like it's going to be good. Like, we're going to have a shot at this thing. That's all we've asked for this entire year, just to be there in the end. And what a drive, what a moment we had as we went down that field.
Yeah.
Like, everybody could sense it, and it just didn't work out in the end. But, when they were driving and they threw the interception, it was probably that experience, the cool feeling like, okay, what you preach and what you tell kids every day, if you do things right, you're going to have a shot at the end. And we did. And I think just being that calm, cool, collected throughout the game just made our players relax, because being in the stadium, Becca knows the first time they probably walked in that first state championship, there was eyes bugged and there were some sophomores. Okay, just settle down, and you have to get everybody relaxed. And the coaches get so excited on game day of the state championship, where you just kind of have to give a feeling of like, relax, calm down. But I remember our ball boys, Scott, they were running out and they were almost like fighting each other to run on the field before the game. And like, people were so excited, like, and in the fourth quarter, you just have to calm and relax in the moment. So, yes.
Did you take notes, Scott? Because do you remember what happened? Like we won the game, and Scott was like, "No, no!" Like I had to run across the field to say, "I told you so." So he was
Yeah,
like,
I was a nervous wreck at our game and your game. They were both came down to the last play, the same as the Massillon game. Hoban catches that. It's the same thing. We lose in the state championship. I mean, to have back-to-back state games that come down to the last throw, that's good for football. That's good for Ohio and good for Division II. You guys got to play a public school. I mean, you don't want to lose to anyone, but to have two public schools in the state championship does my little heart good.
I think also, Scott, the big thing that people don't understand is like, we playing on a Thursday night kind of changes the how you have to prepare, of practicing on a Sunday and then traveling up on Wednesday. It goes by fast. Like, you don't get time to enjoy that moment, do you, Becca? Like, you went on Friday and like all of a sudden your mind switches. Like, you don't get 24 hours after the state Final Four to even like relax. Like, I remember going out to dinner, Scott, on Saturday, or trying to enjoy a little bit of like 30 minutes with my wife, but it's not really enjoying. My mind is thinking this. She's worried about tickets and worried about everything else. So like, those moments for that state week, you don't really get to think about it until after the game. And then I'm mad about losing. And then you get to Christmas and you're supposed to enjoy it, but you just want to get back to it. So
Right.
that part to me is, it's what you signed up for, though. Like, the roller coaster ride of emotions of coaching teenagers is what I signed up and what I love to do.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't know. This is so weird because you actually answer the questions we ask, which we're not used to on here. Then you mention your wife. Maybe I should see if your wife wants to host Raptors Talk. Is it Raptors? Raptors Talk. And
Nate,
I'll dump Becca. And I mean, Nate doesn't answer a damn thing on the show.
like people think like what you see on the sideline is how he is at home too. Like, he does not talk very much. I don't know how he married me. Like, we're complete opposite. And that's probably why he married me. But like he's so opposite, but he is like serious all the time. And Scott will try to make, once in a while he'll crack a smile. Like, after winning the state championship and him actually smile, like everybody's crying and they just smiled. I'm like, well, that's some emotion. You guys are so lucky that he smiled. Because he when they called even the victory formation, he was just like That was it. There was no emotion. He was just so I'm glad you were smiling. It was very fun to follow you and your kids. How do you think you're looking for next year? Like you've got obviously you've got goals and stuff. Like what are your hopes? Did you lose a lot of seniors? You got players that, next man up. Are you excited about it?
So I think, as you know, like it's like one of those things where you get to a point where like, okay, now you're starting to back over week one of the off season, and every coach is dreaming of like, okay, what are goals and aspirations? What are the expectations? And it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be great for our team. We have to rebuild and reload, but I think as a coach, you were waiting for this moment. We have a bunch of guys. We got 7 guys back on defense. We got 5 to 6 guys back on offense. So it's the fun part of like high school football where, okay, this time of year, we don't know what we have yet, but we have a lot of good parts, and we're excited about that. And to face a state runner-up right off the bat is exciting. And I know Ohio versus Kentucky is really, really cool. Just being 5 minutes away, right across the river is going to be a great atmosphere. Scott, I do have one team left for a quad scrimmage, so you can talk to Nate. I'll just make sure you and Becca hook it up, and maybe we can get it. Maybe
It's
we can
in.
get it started.
I mean, look, I have the authority. I mean, Nate runs a lot of things past me.
He
I
doesn't
mean,
even
all the time.
doesn't even follow you on Twitter, Scott.
Yeah, I found that out when you followed me. I'm like, look, I got the coach from Cincinnati Anderson following me, but not the Massillon Tigers. And Becca said, well, Nate doesn't follow many people. He follows 2,000 people. I'm not even in the top 2,000 of people for Nate. I don't want him to follow me. Who needs it?
We do have a good time though. We love to give Nate a hard time. He just whatever. Yeah, we do have a good time.
Thank you so much for your attitude about this. It just meant so much to me because we never were making fun of you ever. I've been so interested in this. This is so fascinating. I love people who think out of the box, and you don't punt. I mean, your whole watching that state game was so much fun. I
Yeah.
mean, your fans do not know how good they have it with you. I hope they really realize. I mean, you're putting on a show every week, and I love it. I mean, keep it up. You're our second favorite team, and you know, unless we face you, I'm always rooting for you.
Yeah, and our kids loved you too, so that you can, tell your former players or players that are graduating, like our kids followed you and they enjoyed this season and they looked forward to getting Scott's report each week. And we did find it very fascinating. We'll continue to follow you and root you on and keep doing what you're doing. And you're always welcome in Massillon if you ever think you have time and want to come up to a Massillon McKinley game because we play on a Saturday. I'd love to have you and your wife and kids, and I'll put you up in the box because we have a press box and show you the ropes.
The new coach of McKinley, does he know what he's got himself into, Scott? Are we giving a preview?
I wanted you. I kept saying, I tweeted out immediately. I wanted you to bring punt or no punt to Stark County. I would have loved it. I was like, come on.
Yeah, we wanted you to come up here.
Scott, there's no way to come up to Stark County versus McKinley at this time, versus Massillon. Now, I will tell you this, that people don't understand. Massillon is what they've built and what Nate has. It's got a great thing going. And people don't understand how good it is and where it's keep going to, because it's still building day by day, and you can see it from down here. And it's exciting to watch from a high school of what facilities and what they've given and what he's worked for. And I'm excited to see where high school football goes and what happens from here on out. And so hopefully we get to see each other in the Division II Final Four, and you get to wear a half and half shirt. I'm going to make sure.
Listen, I will be the first one to buy that punt or no punt shirt. So make it happen.
You might regret that because he might start a whole chant. Punt, no punt.
And Becca, the first time Nate doesn't punt, I want to make sure you film him and say, "What's he doing? Why is he doing that?" The first 4th and 1 of the year, and he doesn't punt. I just want to make sure the Massillon fans understand that he is the one who started this. So.
Right. Yep. I mean, I hope what you do catches on, mostly your spirit. I'm just a huge fan of yours. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a big treat for everyone. I was heartbroken that we couldn't play you, but also, I can walk around in Maslin now, so it's safe.
And we'll be rooting you on next year. So good luck next year, coach. And tell your wife I'm definitely a fan of her too, because I understand the process and what it takes to get through a season like what you got through last year and head into the following season too. So I'll be thinking about you guys and following you guys.
Thank you. Good luck. Go Orange. Go Black.
That's
Yep.
right.
And for us, Scott, TIG.
ERS. We're here at Cincinnati Anderson to play punt or no punt. Right here at the home. And this week, no punts! No punts again! We are still on with only one punt all season. Come on, let's bring it home.
I get a kick out of you.